Welcome back to the Bench Fair podcast and our special feature for the 20th anniversary of Ice Hockey Varsity. In this episode, I'll be interviewing the heads of sport of Sheffield University and Sheffield Hallam University, Andy Cox and Kate Cox. Let's get started. So, welcome, Andy and Kate. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to open up straight with a question that I've been asked quite a few times. Are you two related?
Yeah, we are actually.
Are you?
Yeah, we're married.
Oh, are you?
We
oh,
are
I didn't
married,
know, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine, don't be sorry.
It's a relationship in varsity, isn't it? It helps to, make the tournament go well.
Yeah, that was never the
was
driver.
Not the idea, no.
But yeah, it's probably something that when we're working, we try and stay as professional as we possibly can. It's not something we necessarily broadcast, but it's equally not a secret. And Andy's right, actually. Over the last couple of years, it has proved pretty helpful in terms of harmony across both teams and working together on something that we're both incredibly passionate about and have spent many years both individually and together building and being part of. So yeah, it's probably a little bit unorthodox and it gets a little bit competitive for a couple of weeks a year in the household, but it's all good fun and I think we're just really proud to both be part of it.
Yeah, and in some ways it's similar to the Bears, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, bringing it back to the Bears and the competition, it's very much a similar thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say I can definitely relate with my partner being from Hallam, and then obviously we're all lovey-dovey all year round, and then Varsity comes along and we're like, no, you know what, screw you, we're going to win this time. Yeah,
it's not quite like that screw you stuff, but we do. But there are some times when it gets busy, doesn't it? Varsity's busy, so
yeah,
definitely have our moments. Yeah.
So we've got a couple of questions that we ask everybody that we have on, and first one being, what does Varsity mean to you? If you want to start, Kate.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a big question, isn't it? For me, Varsity means loads of different things. I mean, I'm in a probably quite a unique situation where I was actually a student at the University of Sheffield in the early 2000s. So I kind of went through 3 years as an undergraduate as a women's cricketer, actually, kind of having the whole student experience through a black and gold lens. I was then the elected sports officer for a year. So I got the opportunity to work with the University of Sheffield team to deliver Varsity as an officer and I guess be at the heart of this kind of student voice and representative angle. And then I carried on. I kind of moved professionally into my work as a sport development officer, then a sport development manager, and then part of the university senior management team. And at every stage at Varsity has been a kind of big part of my role. In 2019, I moved over to Hallam, and then Varsity has continued very much on that side of the city. So, Varsity's probably meant lots of different things at different times. As a student, it was about being part of something much bigger. That was the time of the year where your eyes were open to a much larger sporting community, people that felt the passion, felt the energy, felt the enthusiasm for their sport in the same way that you felt, or I felt for cricket at the time. And it was just a great advert for everything else that was happening. I guess sometimes, and I still see it now with students, people can be quite tunnel visioned, as in they love their sport, they're so invested in their club and their committee and why that's the most important thing. But the 2-week period just completely shatters that in terms of there's a penny drop moment that this is something a bit more special. And then the celebrations, the commiserations, whatever it is, you're united as your university. as a staff member, and fast forward into now, Varsity is just, we have this, probably collectively have these pinch me moments at certain times of, well, different years or different competitions, where you have to take a step back and go, wow, you know, what is this? What's been created? And yesterday at the sports park, we had over 3,000 people under the sunny Sheffield skies, which was just phenomenal. And that was a moment for me, even just 24 hours ago, thinking, this matters. You know, you can see that year on year the students change and they kind of go through the motion, but what doesn't change is just the energy, the feeling. And if I could bottle it, or if we could bottle it, I think it'd be something really, really special and something that people would want to buy or get their hands on. But it's that magic as well, which is quite intangible. But yeah, for me, it's a sense of pride, it's a sense of progress, it's a sense of passion, belonging, and yeah, I'm really proud that we have this in Sheffield.
I guess I've been around Varsity since, I would say, 2002, and maybe then the Bears was 2003, I think. So I've been around it quite a while. It was very much a different beast than Varsity. It was my first introduction was I moved to Goodwin in 2001 actually, and came here as to the University of Sheffield from local authority sport, and then was introduced to Varsity the year after by the Hallam sports officer, who said, we need to sit down and organise this event. It's called Varsity, and that were in January. And if I thought about that now, we'll start in April. In fact, we've started next year's Varsity already, planning. So it's unbelievable to think how much that's grown. I guess what it means to me, I suppose it's not important what it means to me. I guess it's important what it means to students really competing from both universities, and especially for me at the University of Sheffield. But it was a reason, I guess, to showcase to the university what sport and physical activity, what sport could do. I was really struggling to get traction as a club sport manager then, to start Black and Gold. We didn't have these events we're probably going to talk about today, but it was a reason to get people to notice university sport at the University of Sheffield. And so Varsity became that. It became a bit of a political thing, really, to say once a year you're going to look at sport and recognise how important it is. So, and from that point, it's obviously just, it's massive. And we'll probably talk about this later, but in a new strategy that we're just about to unveil, Varsity is not just a 2-3 week event. It's a way of working for us throughout the year. I mean, it's not just the sports events, it's lots of other things. So Varsity means, I guess, everything. It's part of our jobs. It's so important to students. It's a celebration of what we do throughout the year, but it comes at the end of the year. It's not books, it's not British University Ice Hockey Leagues where we're competing, I guess, in league structures. It just means everybody counts, every point, every fixture counts, and I think that's what's unique about it. So yeah, that's about it really.
How many years have you been involved in Varsity then? So I guess you just mentioned from 2002.
Yeah.
What about you, Kate?
Yeah, so my first Varsity as a student was in 2006. So I had 3 years as a student, 1 year as a student officer, and then a staff member since that point on both sides of the table. The only exception would be the 2 COVID years, which everyone was obviously hugely disappointed to miss. So yeah, so I've had a bit of a continuous streak since 2006. Yeah, makes me feel old. makes me feel really old.
Do you have any favourite memories from all those varsities? Like if you had to pick one?
I've got a lot actually. I mean, there's a few. I had to write them down this morning because there's quite a few things. I think the first time we ever did, I mean, I remember sitting down with, it was Tom Helliwell, Chris Mason, Tim Coxworth, the guys who came into the Students' Union when I had an office in there, and said, we want to start an ice hockey club. I think that was my first ever memory of going, are you crazy, you know? And I think they were doing roller hockey or something at that time, and just playing a bit of ice hockey because it was big in Sheffield with the Steelers. So I think that's obviously my first memory. Then having the first Varsity, I think, at Ice Sheffield, and bussing first years in, you know, to come and watch it and staging some fights. And I had an air horn under my seat, and we were just trying to create an event, an atmosphere. And I think the first time we did it, that was like, we knew we were going to be onto something big, and it just grew and grew. And I guess other key points for me, moving to the arena, absolutely, nervous as hell. And I'll let Kate probably expand on that, about that first one and why and how we did that and the support we had. But other times, seeing big man Mike Zalossi and Will, obviously, who's gone on and played, which is another memory. Seeing Will and his dad on the ice is an emotional memory. But to see Will on one side of the perspex with his hand on it, and Mike on the other, touching hands through the perspex, is something that we were talking about this morning, stuck with me all this time.
And he must only have been 6 or 7.
They were probably younger, I think. Yeah. But then actually to be at the beginning of all these events and organising all the events and never win was always a bit of an elephant in the room, especially for me and Mike. Especially, we talked about it every year. Is this the year? And then to win it, a couple of years ago, what were we, 24 when we won it? I think I was on the defib in the back of the box, actually, sat on the sofa. So, I mean, every year, but just having the light. I used to stand in a certain place actually every year and watch the lights go down, and then just be amazed and probably get emotional just talking about it, but amazed to see it happening. And it was, but then I thought, why am I standing here every year? We're losing. So I moved and we won. So, that were obviously a good memory. So yeah, there's lots. Sorry, Kate, I might have...
Yeah, no. I mean, that is one that we get asked this a lot, and that is one that I definitely share in terms of standing at the top of the horseshoe as the lights go down, and just picking up the atmosphere of everybody. There's so much excitement, there's so much anticipation for that final event, and then the spectacle, obviously, of hosting it in a major venue, the light show, the smoke... The smoke cannons, and then when the players just run on with so much like buzz and verve, it's really magical. And again, like Andy says, like it's impossible not to get goosebumps when you start thinking about that. But we kind of have those moments that's the flagship, that's the jewel in the crown, and that's something that we do recognise. It's hugely important, that final event, for lots of different reasons, and it does have all the razzmatazz because it lends itself so well to it. But what's amazing is it still captures those moments, no matter how big or how small. So maybe 10 years ago, our Ultimate Frisbee clubs, they've always got this ritual where they sit down and everyone brings cake. At the end of the fixture, win, lose or draw, both clubs sit down together and just feast on the riches of how many cakes that they've brought and stuff. And it's lovely how every club has its own sort of personality and traditions and rituals, and like we've been honoured to sort of share in a lot of those things. But yeah, it could have been let's get ready to rumble announcement that happens just before the boxing starts at the Octagon. It can be the various air horns and chants and the ingenious signs and slogans that students kind of develop every single year that you see dotted around. Yeah, there's absolutely tons of memories, and I think it'd be impossible just to select one, but lots of magic.
It just reminded me, actually, if you don't mind me just adding this, but it was, we used to have Winter Varsity, and the Winter Varsity trophy we called it Winter Varsity because we had the ski village in Sheffield. So we used to go from doing skiing and snowboarding maybe on the Friday night to the ice hockey on a Saturday night on the back of the Steelers game. That's when we first moved to the arena. So it was like a bit of an event weekend actually for what we'd call winter sports as such. And
that kind of happened a month before the main event, so there was kind of Winter Varsity in February, and then the Varsity as it kind of was separated then in March and April.
And in the back of my mind I keep thinking if we get the ski village back we might go back to that sort of retro sort of type event really, but
until someone burns it down again.
yeah possibly.
So I guess you already mentioned this as well. Varsity starts in April for you. The previous year, how come it's like such a big preparation? Like I wasn't expecting it to be like over a year ahead. What's all the different things that you have to plan for it?
Kate will probably tell you more about, I guess, some of the detail and the plans that we've got ahead. But I guess why it starts so early is because we need to book facilities early, especially facilities like the arena, you know, where you've got big bands and big events happening. So we have set out sort of 3-year bookings before, a little bit different now because we've got new operators in there this year. So we know the sort of rough dates. Well, we have got a date for next year already, so we have to book that far in advance, and we're normally following up on what's happened on the Varsity. So we start off by reviewing and start to look at what went right, what went wrong, how could we change things, what do the budgets look like, and that's normally where we start in April. But because, you know, we're on Varsity 30 next year, we've already started to make plans. We've had to, because we want to do different things. But I don't know if you want to just why we start so early.
Yeah, I think as the competition's evolved over 30 years, as Andy said, you know, it has gone from a single afternoon of fixtures in 1997 to 2.5 weeks of 80 plus fixtures at major venues, lots of different supplies, lots of different clubs, lots of different expectations. So the logistics of it are huge. And even now when we speak to other stakeholders or partners who are interested in what we do, even different universities who are keen to understand our model, people are absolutely blown away in terms of this kind of almost mini Olympics format where you've got not just every sport, but within that sport, you've got different disciplines as well. So with cycling, we've got 5 different disciplines. So it's quite, I wouldn't say it's complex, but there's lots to it. And it's trying to break that down. So whether it's venues, it's providers, it's contracts, it's sponsors, it's points and all the administration. So once you start pulling the thread, you start going, wow. And we have said this historically, moments where you go, wow, we've created a monster here. Because what has been a genuinely like really organic process. So it started in 97, it was set of fixtures. The following year, more people want to get involved. So, right, we're going to add it, we're going to up it to 12. Then it's 16. Then you start going, oh, we need to have different days. We need to have hub days. It's just like I say, way back when, it was just an add-on to 1 or 2 people's jobs. When I was a student officer, it was myself and the club sport manager and the equivalent at Hallam. It was 4 people who were kind of making it all happen on top of what is an existing job description. Arguably that model has continued, but it's kind of been extended across the various sports teams and the departments. But essentially it is just still an extension of what we all do. And by trade, we're not necessarily events experts. We don't do this 365 days a year. So being able to start nice and early means that it can be incorporated into people's kind of weekly job roles, expectations, but also that we can safeguard and protect the event because it's got so significant. The expectations of students rightly are so high. You know, it's not going to wash if we turn around in January and go, do you know what, we were busy, so we forgot to secure the ice time, or we were unable to book the octagon, or we can no longer hire a ring, or whatever it might be. So there's, I guess, with the success of the event, there's also become a lot of expectation. Things like risk assessment, insurance, all these things where years and years ago, it was just a bit of a it was a bit of an end of year party and celebration. But when you're selling 8,000 tickets, it's the what if, it's the contingency plans around potential losses and mitigations and liabilities, and again, things you would have never ever have thought about years and years ago.
We're just trying to create the conditions so you guys, I know we're here today with the Bears, but create the conditions for you to come and play, and create the conditions for students to have an unbelievable experience, really. And if anybody goes to ice hockey and steps out on the ice as a player, I've not done that as a player, but I've stepped onto the ice. And I've stepped onto Hillsborough when there's been 5,000. You ain't going to get that unless you're a professional player, and you don't even get that as a professional ice hockey player sometimes in this country, unless you're at Panthers or Steelers or somewhere. So that's why we start early, I guess. We need to create the conditions that make it good for both students and our staff, because come September, we're very busy. We've got books, fixtures. We might be building sports buildings, or we might be doing. There's lots of things happening, so we've got to create the time to make sure it's absolutely like 110% and better than last year, hopefully.
Which of all the events would you say is the most demanding? I'm gonna guess ice hockey ones, or is it another one?
In a way, and I don't say this lightly, sometimes the ice hockey can seem more straightforward, and that's because we're obviously working with a venue that host events day in, day out, whether that's a Harry Styles concert or a Strongest Man competition or gladiators or whatever it be. So in a way, it's quite helpful. There's a carbon copy model in terms of Steelers. It's not like the ice is brought in specifically for us for that one event. So there's lots of things that do make that event a little bit more straightforward. The arena staff are absolutely fantastic. We've got a really good working relationship with them. Got a long-standing relationship with Mike O'Connor at Steelers, and in a way we've got a blueprint now that makes it easier. I guess event enhancements over the last couple of years make it a little bit more demanding, and I'm sure you guys will have been involved in like the green screens and all the different stakeholders are involved in getting things up on the screen, and who's doing that, and who's liaising with Chris Beasley, and who's doing the script, and is it right, is it wrong, when's team selection. So there's a lot of like detail to it, but in terms of a lot of the logistics, it's kind of there. I think, I'm trying to think of some of the more complex ones. You know, something like the sports park is probably logistically a little bit more of a headache just because it's so unusual. It's our home venue. There's never a time where we'd have 3,500 students on a site at one time. You know, logistics around buses and transport and getting people there. You know, it's not like we can pick up a Bucks Wednesday and just recreate it. Being on the radio yesterday and going, right, we've got 3 buses here, and can they get entrance, and what's the ticketing system, and how do we digitalise it, and then who's on the PA system, and how is this working? So in a way, some of the, I guess, more challenging or logistically kind of difficult events are the ones which take such a significant jump from the norm. But they all have the weird and wonderful intricacies. We always think every year that'll be much slicker next year, or that'll be much straightforward. And sometimes it's the more straightforward that you kind of have the biggest headaches with. But we get there.
I think I think the big events are more a collaboration, and that's the whole point of Varsity. You know, when you think about, we're working with Supertram, we need to get people there and back. We work with security, the police, the arena, with you guys. It's like you guys, as the Bears, do the bit that makes the magic, really. We, again, as I said earlier, we set the conditions in a way. So I wouldn't say they're easier, they're just different, I think, and agree with Kate. I think our home events are slightly more complicated because we're having to do a lot of that ourselves rather than just bring in the expertise. So, you know, and in the future, that might be something as we see Varsity grows, we might continue to do a bit more of bringing in the expertise while we carry on doing the day job, if you know what I mean. So, you know, who knows where that might go, but I think, yeah, I agree there with Kate. But every event as it is different.
So did you have any hopes for this year, and do you have any plans or hopes for next year? You already touched on changing how stuff will be happening, so are you going to share anything with us?
Absolutely not, no. Because we've not finished this one yet.
Yeah.
In terms of hopes for this year, I think the hope was we wanted to set some plans, as Kate had said before. We often leap from year to year, and a couple of years ago I think we said we can't carry on doing this, let's set a bit of a, sounds a bit boring, but a bit of a strategic plan really about what it's about and what we want to achieve and the data we want to collect, and you might want to touch on a little bit on that. We've put some things in place this year, like playways to collect scores, players, data, feedback. So we're really looking, I guess, to get some statistics and data around Varsity, because we know it's a fantastic event, but let's prove it, I guess, and help us to move forward. For me personally, I'd like to win Varsity. That's always a nice thing to do, and we're not in a bad position at the minute. And that'll be 12 consecutive wins, and sorry Kate, but I am going to get it in, but I guess my first 10 years were no wins, and we did say collectively with students in the Arts Tower at the bottom, and I remember that when we win one we'll win 10, and we did. but now the bar's set at 15, so that's something controversial and setting the standard in it for the future. But we have got some good plans for next year. You might want to just, without saying too much, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I just rewind a little bit and it probably get cut out because it's quite boring. But I guess a hope going into every year is just that we have a really solid and safe set of events. Over the last couple of years, student behaviour has been immaculate. I think on both sides, the levels of respect between both institutions is probably at its highest. I think the relationship's been as good as it ever have been, which is really important because historically there was always a risk of it being a little bit too toxic, and the risk that carried just wasn't in the spirit of which it started. And I think we've done really well collectively to kind of get on top of that and really see it as a celebration, as Andy said earlier. So yeah, the hope and expectation is it's a well-run event. People are safe, people get home safe, it goes without incident. Of course, we're hopeful going into every year. We are hopeful that we will be able to change and start turning the tables on the result. Andy's shaking his head, which I can see out the corner of my eye. But we're also realistic, and I think but universities are in a completely different place, but we are definitely moving in the right direction at Hallam. I think the future looks incredibly bright, and with every year I hope we get closer and closer to making it a much more competitive event again. I'd like to smile through gritted teeth and say winning isn't everything, but it would be lovely for the competition, I think, to see Hallam with some maroon and white ribbons on that trophy at some point in the not too distant future. Maybe Varsity 30, who knows. But linked to that, thinking about next year, as we've alluded to, similar to your anniversary, next year it is the 30th anniversary of the Varsity competition. We've got so much to celebrate in terms of people that have been involved in the event over the last 30 years, the kind of founding fathers, the various sports officers, the iconic kind of students and dates and milestones which we've kind of being able to tick off. I think it's going to be a really, really rewarding year to look back and be grateful for the journey that kind of got us to this point, but also to really start to drive and deliver the strategy that Andy mentioned. A big thing with that is that because of its evolution and because of how it started to become so significant in the university calendar annually, we wanted to safeguard it. We wanted it to be something that if myself and Andy leave or other people move on, Varsity's still got to kind of continue. So having a blueprint, having processes, procedures, things that sound quite boring, having an agreed governance structure for how both universities deliver and support and ensure the long-term sustainability of the competition is kind of all outlined in there. So I think Varsity 30 will take the headlines, understandably, because that'll be the most important thing for next year, but also I guess some of the work behind the scenes around continuation, stability. There's loads to do, but it's really exciting, like really, really exciting in terms of where we take this next decade for Varsity, and I can't wait to be part of it.
Let's change the focus a bit now and talk about you specifically. Andy, you've been at the uni from 2004, like...
Two, I think. 2002, yeah.
How did you, what led you to this role?
Wow. Was this careers advice?
Yeah,
this is going to sound really geeky, actually. But I guess I played sport a lot as a kid, like we probably all did, and played lots of sports, lots of football, and always wanted to work in sport. If I weren't going to play professionally at sport or something, I wanted to work in sport, and my target was to become a head of sport and be a supervisor by 25, and I had all these milestones and post-it notes and things. So to actually, I guess I worked in local authority leisure, really did lots of coaching across multiple sports, really to boost my CV and to get experience. So moving to the university really as a duty manager, I think, in probably, I don't know when it would be.
2001?
Yeah, just a bit before 2001. The university had just changed, actually, and believe it or not, had redeveloped Goodwin. which a bit unbelievable really, but I came in then and the university had really changed, and then I did a couple of years as duty manager, so on site at Goodwin, but my passion really, I get that, my passion is in there, but my passion's for a bit wider than just operational stuff, so to be able to develop sport and develop clubs and work with students was, I guess, where my passion was. Got an opportunity, club sport was in a bit of a mess, got an opportunity to move in there, went in there in the Students' Union, and we brought the black and gold stuff back. We brought clubs back that had been lost, and I'm giving you the short version here, it wasn't as easy as this. And I think a few years later, probably 11 years ago, there was an opportunity for me to become the head of sport, which I took, applied and took. I mean, that's the real short version. But I guess I just live and breathe it, really, black and gold. People often say to me, you've been here a long time. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like I've been here 24 months. So I've still got the same energy, enthusiasm, ideas have never run out, still going. So while that's happening, we'll be pushing on really as much as we can. We've got some real vision about what we need to do at the university in terms of sport. You'll have seen that in terms of facilities. But while we're doing that, we'll be pushing on with clubs, and we've seen us rise from being ranked something just 40th in books. We've been up to 17. I think that's where we need to be. We need to be around that 15. Winning and losing's not a be-all and end-all. Participation, I guess, is what we're about. But it's nice to create big opportunities for beginners and elite athletes. I think we can do it all, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I think we've done a good job of it so far. Club memberships like 6,500. I think it was something like 2,800 when I started. So, we've pushed on, but we've got more to do. So I don't know if that helps. Bit of a short version on my 24 years at university, but
it's a good answer. I mean, it definitely sounds like you took the what's the saying? Do a job that's your hobby and you'll never work a day in your life.
Well, yeah, that's exactly
phrasing,
what I say.
Yeah.
I mean, people say to me about that, and I just say I get paid to do my hobby, and it does. Not every day feels like that. Some days it doesn't, but I would say most days feel like that. And as long as they do, we'll keep going till we get things done. Really.
What about you, Kate? How did you get here? I've also noticed that you've been to Canberra for a short while. How'd you end up there?
Yeah, well, I suppose I probably took a different route. As in, I was raised in a really sporty family. Every kind of holiday, my PE was my favourite sport. We were playing out after school, playing every sport under the sun forever. And I got to 16 and thought, I love sport. I would really love to work in it. But at that point, the prospects were so limited. I remember speaking to a careers advisor who said, you could work as a lifeguard or a PE teacher. And I kind of thought, I'm not sure that's for me. So I went and did my A-levels. I studied kind of non-sporting, more academic courses, I guess, and then continued on to Sheffield University to study sociology, and just kind of accepted that maybe it was just my hobby and something that I couldn't necessarily work in or make a decent career out of. And then it's really strange how, I guess, you come back to your passion. So it was only really through signing up to a sports club at university, understanding a little bit more about the ins and outs, so running for a committee position, being a club captain, and then being exposed to the sports committee structure, then seeing that people run for elections and can be paid to bang the drum for what matters to students around sport. And it was really in 2009 where I attended the Bucks conference for the first time as an elected officer, and just looked around it at a lecture theatre that was just full of professional sports managers and leaders, heads of sport, directors of sport development managers. And I thought, wait a second, I was thinking back to that careers advisor and thought, you really didn't know what you were talking about. So, and again, very cheesy but true, it was in that moment as a really keen 21-year-old writing lots of notes and hanging on every keynote speaker's, every single word, that I thought to myself, I really want to be a head of sport at a university. And then, fortunately enough, 11 years later, that came true when I got the job at Sheffield Hallam in 2020. Rewinding back to Canberra, that was an extraordinary opportunity that kind of came out of nowhere, really. And it might be a nice segue back to an individual who's been quite significant to the ice hockey varsity event. But basically, I was shared an opportunity for an interim head of sport role in UC, or at UC, which is the University of Canberra in Australia. I put my hat in the ring and was successful. And then before I knew it, I was flying out in September to go and oversee their sports department, but also their professional basketball team as well. It was a very unusual role, I must say, but one that I felt was too much of a brilliant opportunity to turn down. I was very much out of my comfort zone for a long period of that opportunity, but I think the experience it gave me was absolutely invaluable, and I guess really helped me stand out in the crowd when applying for the job I now have. I think I was probably the youngest head of sport, and probably female as well at the time, for both opportunities, which I'm really, really proud of, and I'm really glad that I said yes when the opportunity came calling.
So we're here for careers advice when anybody wants different pathways.
Working in the same kind of sector, there's no wonder that you would have met, but like, how did you two meet? Like, what did sport play a role in like you finding each other?
Wow.
If you don't mind me asking.
It's moving from the bears to like marriage guidance or something. But
we're here for it all.
I mean, we knew each other, didn't we? And then we worked together later, and I think that's, I guess, the short answer, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a shared passion for sport and physical activity in students in terms of what we do, and we really, I can't speak on behalf of Kate, but I guess we really enjoy. Kate touched on it earlier. I was like a secret millionaire, got on the bus yesterday to the sports park with all the students, and people are going, why is this fella sat on the bus, really? But, we I guess we share that sort of passion to see people enjoying themselves and to see people develop. I don't know what you guys are going to go on to do, but we've seen people who are politicians or really senior leaders or successful in different jobs around the world, and it is around the world, where we go, and we'll see people. We're going to call on someone in Singapore in a few months, and we've met people in Australia. I guess we sort of share that, don't we? And I think that might be something why that interaction happened, really.
Yeah, I think obviously sharing interests and especially that passion for university sport and student sport, it's I guess it's a bond and something that probably brought us together, and has probably just solidified, I guess, what we do moving forward. I think nowadays we try and take less work chat home, and we try and have some kind of more reinforced boundaries around what's home life and what's work life and stuff. But I do think that, what is it, 15 years on or whatever, we're still kind of connected
Can
by that.
Can often be seen on holiday, me in my black and gold shorts and Kate in her maroon outfits.
Going back to Varsity, it's a big event where like everybody gets to show off their best. Do you have any like favorite players or any favorite memories of someone who would have overcome like some form of adversity to compete in Varsity, or like anyone who's developed significantly that like stuck with you?
I think there's been a lot, actually, and especially because our Varsity is teams 3, 4, 5, 6. You see people who you might have even seen at open days, and people who've come, I'm not going to name that particular person, but somebody who came to an open day and then just had a discussion, then get involved in a certain sport and didn't play at the highest levels, but then went on to do some work with Forge and media, and then they work for TV, And you see, that's not necessarily a sport, but it came through sport and that sporting pathway. And I think there are lots of people like that involved in Varsity. Even talking to you guys now, or Forge is definitely one of those where you've seen people go on, and maybe Munya Chua, we've seen him on the flag on the way down, his involvement in making videos for Varsity and getting me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, his excitement going, I've made the video, have a look, and I'll be getting up and having a look at it, you know. And that he's not involved in sport, but you do see lots of those success stories across different sports and people, and that's the power of it really. It's not just the playing, it's the value wider, you know, the jobs and the experiences and everything else in it. Without naming individuals, there's loads of them, absolutely loads.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and stuff that's probably so insignificant. So I've got a memory of 2009, believe it or not, and the netball at Goodwin. Can you remember with Ella and Kate and all that lot? And it was the fiercest game of in a good way, you know, fiercely competitive, but their will to win, and that this was the University of Sheffield netball at the time, was just unbelievable. And it was like a game that you just couldn't take your eyes off. The battle, you know, everything that we talk about, everything that you guys will probably feel as well, you know, just that really sort of tenacious effort, energy, because it matters. You know, it's that feeling I was talking about earlier, like stuff that if you could bottle, you absolutely would. And I just remember like the absolute joy when they got the result across the line. And I don't know why that's one of the many things that stick with you, but you kind of, it kind of takes you back and goes, again, it doesn't have to be under the floodlights of Hillsborough, it doesn't have to be in the bright lights of the arena. Like, everybody has their moment, and you remember a couple of those individuals that make it count. I remember, sorry, it's another netball example, but being on court after the netball twos game last year at EIS and going to speak to the Sheffield Hallam girls afterwards, and they were just the elation and getting to meet their parents and being introduced to their parents who were, you know, dressed to the nines in maroon and face paint on, and they're all part of it as well, and hearing from their experience, and obviously being at the other end of a phone or a text message and then actually getting to experience it with their kids is really magical. So like Andy said, there's I say hundreds, but there's probably thousands now over the years where we've had those relationships, met those people, and then I guess hopefully the 30-year celebration efforts will help us kind of tease out some of those things and really go back and invest in those special memories.
I'm sure he'd welcome me saying this as well, but I think Mike Zalossi, when he was sort of retiring last year, I mean, for me personally, that was a big moment, really. I never thought I'd see the day for one, but like the fact that we've been on this journey right from the beginning was, you know, when he's still on the journey, and he will never get, you know, we'll have him in a bronze bust at the end, won't we, or something. But, you know, that was quite touching, really. I think there's been a lot of stuff like that. There's been a few with you guys, I think, you know, over the years. I think Ryan James Zeller, who still works here in careers. We used to call him the cat.
Yeah, that last fixture at Ice Sheffield, it was. It just saved everything. It was unbelievable.
But there's been some unbelievable moments, really. I remember Adam Woods, another guy who came back actually last year, Welsh guy with a really strong Welsh accent, and it was the first year we ever commentated on the ice hockey, and no one could understand anything he was saying. It was just things like that. But I think there's been lots for us as well. I guess the University of Sheffield, we've been on a journey with the club stuff, and we were never going to win men's basketball. We were never going to win rugby league. We were never going to win women's basketball. And over the years, like a few days ago, I went and watched women's basketball and men's basketball win. It wasn't a big deal, but it used to be a massive deal. And I think all of those little things for me are quite important.
Going back to ice hockey, how would you say ice hockey has changed Varsity as an event?
Well, I mean, for one, it's set the standard on it. It's set the standard. So, and that's the standard we'd like, if we could. Well, I'm saying this because I'm not necessarily like on the tools every day these days with Varsity, but I think if we could do that in most sports or have big sports, that'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? You know, and that's what ice hockey's done. I think what it has done as well, it creates the gladiatorial atmosphere for me that you need. You know, when you get a Varsity where you've got one team against another, you've got one crowd against another audience, but it never goes over the edge. It's all contained. It's all, as Kate said earlier, it's all safe and sound. But people like it to be at the edge. And we've got that with boxing as well. We have that with boxing to a smaller. So I think ice hockey set the standard. I think it set the tone. It showed big events can be done safely and done well and showcase the stuff we want it to showcase, a celebration. And I think we wrap around now the bigger aspects of what we're trying to do with sport, physical activity, well-being, health, whatever you want to call it. We wrap all that stuff in the boxes with the people that come. We've got people coming from all over the city, from all over the region. We've got people coming from Europe. We've got all sorts of people. They want to come and watch this event. And also, for the universities here, it's a massive tool for recruitment. You know, if you can see this sort of stuff is happening at the university you might want to go to. It's the ticket everybody wants, isn't it? Mm. So, yeah.
It's sold out immediately.
Yeah, and it links to that point you were making earlier, Andy, about demonstrative value. So again, it was one of those things that we could be able to tangibly demonstrate. This is what students want. You know, there's not many things in either university's calendar that can do this. If anything, I don't think there is. The graduation, obviously, but I guess that's pretty standard. If you go to university, you can expect to graduate and have huge ceremonies. But, you know, it's become the norm. And as you say, it sells out in minutes. It's the hottest ticket in town. But when we first introduced it, the fear factor and the worry about going, oh, God, have we been a bit bold here? You know, and I guess everything's got to start with an element of risk and bravery and being bold, and I guess probably to shout out Andy, you know, like it was Andy's brainchild, you know, it was something that he felt so passionately about and really led the charge on making that case. It was actually the registrar and secretary at the university at the time, Phil Harvey, who Andy had to go and see and convince to kind of underwrite the event, because obviously the plan was that hopefully we'll sell this many tickets and it'll pay for this and it'll cover this. But at the time, you know, we needed the financial backing and the security to take a chance on us. And Andy was pretty convincing, I guess, in terms of securing that. And obviously we're massively grateful for Phil being in position at the time. Like, he's part of that history as well in terms of believing in it. And obviously going on to do what it's done now, and I think it's really made people across the university and also across the city sit up and go, blimey,
well,
the students do care, and it, whether it's a mascot or a colour or a song or an individual, like it has captured the imagination of literally thousands and thousands of people, and it's great to be able to make that come to light or visualise that through the spectacle that is the ice hockey
there's
finale.
still not many ice hockey events in the UK that attract that audience, is there? Not students, you know, any ice hockey event, unless, like, say, the big ones. I think one of the early things that spurred me on as well, and I think spurred the guys on in the Bears at that time, was Nottingham University ice hockey, and we knew we'd got a bigger arena, and we know we can go bigger in the arena, and that might be one of the things we look at more seriously. We've looked at it before. You know, can we go to 10,000? I don't know. You know, that's got to be an ambition, surely. And I think when Nottingham were doing sevens and stuff, I thought, we can do that. So it took a couple of years to build it up. Not long, but it took a couple of years. But it is a risk. It's a risk every year. It was a massive risk when you've never done it. But it's a risk every year. And I think, will people buy tickets? I mean, what was it, 8 minutes or something at our end for 5,000 tickets? I mean, apparently Billie Eilish were a bit worried at that moment in time about ticket sales. We would doing a levels of that sort of level of ticket sales. So, I mean, and every year I'm constantly surprised by that. I keep thinking, have we burnt out? Are we going to? But we've not. And I think with the help of the Bears and this collaboration that we talk about, especially for that event, I can see us pushing on. I think we need to.
Having been here from like before Ice Hockey Varsity started, when did you know that this is going to grow into something this big, or did you not expect it at first?
I did expect it. If we wouldn't have done it, I wouldn't have gone, knocking on Mike O'Connor's door in the Steelers and said, we've got this event going off over here that you know about because he's been helping us organising it. But we've got to come in here. We've got to come next door. We've got to go in the arena. How are we going to do it? And I think I did expect it. So it's still a risk when we're going to say to someone, when somebody says to you, though, I up in the university, we've got your bag, give it a go. You have a go at it, don't you? And I didn't expect actually to go back and say it's not worked. I expected us to do it, but I did expect, well, we'll just do the lower bowl, and then we might do a few more sections up above the year after, but it just blew up really. And I think now a bit of an expectation, isn't there? Not from me though, I don't take it for granted one bit.
I suppose one of the things as well, just to chime in, a big part of the Varsity strategy now, and I guess it has always been there, but it was never kind of written down, was that we really lean into Sheffield's strengths. So, for example, there's certain things that just don't lend themselves, or we just don't have. So, surfing, for example, we're pretty landlocked. We're not going to take a varsity event out to the East Coast or the South Coast because it's just not viable. So, looking at what Sheffield's strengths are, what we do well, what professional clubs are already in the city, and take it from there. And again, historically we've done football, so Bramall Lane, I think the first Bramall Lane football event was in 2006, and then we had the final at Hillsborough in 2010 where Howard Webb famously refereed the final fixture, and then a few months later went on to referee the World Cup final.
And the Champions League.
Yeah, so we had a busy year that year. But I guess what's unique with ice hockey is, so what we were finding, we were selling out 5,000-6,000 seats in the football stadiums, but due to the acoustics, due to the size, due to the scale, it just wasn't hitting those heights. Whereas you go into the arena, it's closed off, it's so loud, it has the light show, it has and then again, this is me being boring in terms of logistics, you don't have the wet weather contingencies, you don't have the worry that there's going to be enough flow. We've got the super tram and the public transport routes, so it's so perfect. And again, I don't want to offend Bears listeners because obviously that's absolutely not why we're here, but it's more than ice hockey. So you might get, believe it or not, a lot of fans who are there because they're cheering for something bigger. They're cheering for their university, and it's amazing because it's a great shop window for ice hockey. You get so many people going, never seen ice hockey, what's it about? Why isn't there another quarter? Yeah, there aren't quarters. But so hopefully it's a win-win for everybody involved, but it does lend itself. It is a spectacle. It has the music, it has the razzmatazz, it has the in-game entertainment. It's just perfect. And again, it's a celebration of ice hockey in the city. It showcases partnerships with Steelers, Steel Dogs, all that other stuff. And it also elevates a sport which isn't necessarily front and centre throughout the rest of the year in terms of the books competitions and stuff. So it kind of ticks all the boxes. And again, some of that is just through, I guess, coincidence, circumstance, whatever you call it. But as I guess we've been more driven and more intentional about it, it just seems to make sense.
Kate mentioned a word, I think that's been important as well, and it's probably not as important to you guys actually who play ice hockey, but it is show, and I think it is a show, and I think that's why people like it as well, and it introduces them to a sport that they might not have been introduced to before, and I think that's what's exciting about it as well. And if you see what's happened with the Bears, we're on F or something now, roster down to teams F. And the success and we haven't even started yet, I don't think, have we? I think we can make the city of Sheffield the student ice hockey city. We're already getting there, aren't we? But I think we can do a bit more. That's where I sort of want to take it, really. But we can only do that with you guys and as two universities really passionate and a professional ice hockey team and other teams supporting that. I think what we need to do, though, is create a smoother pathway for that. It feels a bit jumping on different pathways at the minute to get to where you need to get to in terms of being professional, but I think there's work we can do on that. And we've got representatives from the governing body coming to ice hockey this year. I can never get it right, but I think it's BUIHA or something.
Yeah, that's the one.
So I think we've got representatives coming from there. We've got representatives coming from EUSA, European EUSA Bucks. We've got a Bucks
European
chief exec coming.
Sports games, yeah.
So it's going to attract attention, and I think we've already got all the playoffs and finals in Sheffield anyway, aren't we? But I think we can build on it. So I think that's what's attractive about ice hockey, and I feel like it's a poke in the eye to what you traditionally call bigger sports. Like Kate mentioned with football, we can do it with ice hockey because it has everything you want it to have, really.
Are there any plans for making the ice hockey twos bigger? Maybe having like a whole day in the arena as opposed to just one game?
I think one of the challenges, and again, this had popped into my head earlier, is, like Andy said, if money was no object, if resource was no object, if this was a business and it was our full-time job and we had 25 staff members, etc., you would be looking to give everybody and make everybody's sporting experience the best it possibly can be. There's no getting away from the fact that there are some sports who have the bells and whistles and, you know, and that's get you guys at the ice hockey end. And there's also some students and groups who feel, I wouldn't say necessarily aggrieved, but they have the same appetite and passion and desire that you guys probably have. And unfortunately, just either because we don't have the space, there isn't an endless amount of money to cover those costs, or just the spread of people and time and expertise just isn't there. We're always juggling that, and it isn't because, sorry guys again, it's not because we love ice hockey more than we love other sports. It's just about making it fit. So there's always this battle of, well, it's such a good problem to have because it just shows the hunger from each university and each club to go, we want a bit more, we want to do a little bit more. But there's always lines to draw. There's always that balance of fairness and recognising that it can't be egalitarian right across the piece, and it's just about going, well, hang on, the time, effort, energy that goes into this, can we siphon any time away from the other events, and is that fair? And there's probably no scientific calculation, but where we can make improvements, I think we absolutely would. It'll all come down to like logistics, so access, and nothing's off the table. Like there is as part of the strategy document, there's a governance structure, there's groups to feed in these suggestions, ideas, understanding. I think it's just about students understanding that we are not just here to cross our arms and say no. There'll always be a reason if we can or we can't. But again, it's a nice problem to have when people are coming to you going, can we have a bit more? Can we do this? Can we keep going and going and going? But it's also recognising that Varsity it's a sum of all its parts, right? So it's not just about individuals and individual clubs. It's about that bigger effort and picture. So that's not me saying the seconds and the teams aren't going to move into it, but it's also about understanding that we're working with, 45 clubs, nearly 90 fixtures, and there'll be some give and take around where we can move things, where we can, and we've made enhancements. So EIS Day is a really good example on Monday where we've looked at tweaking things like player experience, run-ons, music, introductions, team sheets, and wherever there is that ability to add greater value or to do greater recognition and raising awareness of teams and sports, we'll do our best to do that. But the reality is there's a finite group of people, time, staff, resource, and there's also the juggle around fairness. And I don't even want to say it because it's really... it's impossible to achieve, but it is something around the principles of which we're trying to operate that we need to balance out the best we can.
This is I guess we don't have to agree, I guess, do we? You know, it's nothing to do with a relationship or whatever, but I guess we come at it from different angles as well, and I think everything Kate's just said is absolutely spot on. I think a lot of the restrictions come around cost as well as staffing time, and I think with the arena it's cost. If we go a minute over next Wednesday, it's costing us a lot of money. So, you know, that's the reality of what we're dealing with, and the security and lighting and everything else. In terms of just ambition, I guess we're seeing the twos grow. We're also seeing women's ice hockey grow. Yeah. And I think I don't know where that's going to go and what's going to go bigger. If I'm being ambitious, if I didn't have any cost issues, if we didn't have any staffing issues, if we had other things, then yeah, we've got an arena stood with ice on it. We've got potentially a group of people who might want to go and watch a twos game or a women's game. Then why not have a look at piggybacking the other one? But that's obviously, I'm saying that as an ambition, as a vision, without any restrictions. And Kate's just pointed out the reality of that. And I think, but it doesn't mean we can't think about that, or we can't think to make the crowd bigger. That might pay for the other stuff. I think I take a slightly different view, and I always come at it from what can we do, what is possible, and then I might think about how can we make that happen in reality. So it's not any different. I just come at it from different angles, I guess.
Just a quick one. When will women's varsity or women's ice hockey varsity become a official point scoring fixture? Is that something that will be happening in the next couple of years?
So the governance basically, and the way that points and fixtures can be kind of onboarded is that I think the girls have hit the first marker. We had that first, I guess, development or friendly event last time's rolling by, which I just wanted to say is absolutely incredible. Again, if we go back to 2010 when we moved to the arena first time, I think we had one female player for Hallam. To see both universities having a team is absolutely phenomenal. So just massive thanks to whoever's been behind that and driving that and supporting that, because that's something we need to celebrate. If we've got two teams again next year, because we've almost gone through the first year of process, the test bed almost, to see is it sustainable, is it something we can do, it would absolutely go in the mix for that. So when we hit the almost opt-in around fixtures, if we've got that match up, it can absolutely be considered for a point. We've just got to ensure that it's competitive enough and it stands up as a point, but there's absolutely no reason why it couldn't be considered for 2027.
I think that's the main point here, Carol, I guess, is that with all varsity, it's student-led. You know, it's student-led, but there's a time when it has to be led by students. There's a period of time when we go, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to change, this, and then we can all sit down and we have the boring bit, sprinkling over the boring stuff like risk assessments and budgets and is it sustainable, because that's what's important. We don't want to be a point this year and not a point next year, and a point this year and not. That's no good to the competition or to the sport. And I think when we're in a position to be convinced that it's sustainable and that we're going to have an annual women's varsity, yeah, and that might be next year. I don't know. This is why we start in April and we start reviewing, and there's that period of time from April onwards to listen to cases and to listen to student feedback and opinion. And then by the end of August, beginning of September, we're normally in a position where we know what we're dealing with and what fixtures we've got. It's no good coming back to us in January, and it does happen, saying we've
had a chat.
We've had a chat. We want to change it, and we go. Hang on a bit. We've booked this. We've done that. We've done it. We've done away with that. There's a period of time where we look at that. So there's a strong possibility. We just need to be convinced, and we need support to make new events happen, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you both for coming, and thank you for your great answers. And good luck to both of you with Varsity, the rest of Varsity, and hopefully we'll see you at Ones.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us.
We'll definitely be there.
We will be there.
You might not see us, but we'll definitely be there. But yeah, good luck to everybody, and thanks to everybody over the years, really, with the Bears. I think but I do think we're only just starting, aren't we? We've got a lot more to go. So thank you.